Count money, man. Stack riches. Try and told him I'm a beast, bud.
What's up, gang? Welcome back to another episode of the GRINDcast. Get ready. It's a new day, and we got a special guest, special episode here for you today. We got Bill, the real deal, Hutch, as they call him, Hutchinson, pro boxer, 23-4 record. This upcoming, well, actually tomorrow, we're gonna have your next fight coming up tomorrow, and we're excited. I know a lot of people in Pittsburgh are excited, and so tell us, first, I think a lot of folks here in Pittsburgh know you. We got viewers and listeners all over the country, and so tell us, first, let's start out with your upbringing. Tell us a little bit about how you came up as a youngster.
Yeah, absolutely. I born and raised in Pittsburgh, right in the West End, and so coming up, it was there was a lot of that blue collar lunch pail kind of attitude in Pittsburgh, as everybody kind of knows it as, and people respect the tough guys. People enjoy that gritty, grinding kind of personality. So, it was always kind of natural for me as a competitor to want to be able to do that, to compete, whether that be in judo or boxing. I started when I was younger in judo. My parents
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
all right.
My parents were trying to get me to burn up some energy, and that was kind of the safer option. They felt like, maybe. But as well as I do, that can get pretty gritty as well. So, but I really enjoyed that. My sister actually was really good at judo. She won the states. She was no joke.
Okay.
She was better than me at judo, actually.
All right.
So it was
older or younger sister.
Younger sister.
Okay.
So shout out to Ashley. She could throw down a little bit.
You hip toss her husband around if she needs to.
Yeah, poor guy. But that's a fact. And at a certain point, I told my father, I want to do this for real. I want to throw hands. I really want to get into this. And I'm
Where
positive.
in Pittsburgh did you grow up?
So originally I was in Sheridan, which was
Okay.
west end of Pittsburgh, and then at a certain point we moved, and I ended up graduating from Montour High School.
Okay, Montour.
Yeah,
I got you.
So, but the judo gym was in Sheridan. This was like a church basement, like as basic as it could be.
Okay.
Kind of something for the kids to do that was probably a little better than whatever else they were doing.
What age?
So I would say it's foggy. I would say about 6 to like 12.
Okay.
So a good portion of time. I really enjoyed that a lot, but I told my dad, I said, listen, I want to do this for real. And he was like, okay, well, let's watch one
When did
first.
you transition into
13.
judo into boxing?
13.
Okay, 13.
Vividly, because my first fight was at 13, so I remember that for sure. And right across from that church where the judo gym was Langley High School, which is that area's high school, and across the street from that was the POW boxing gym that I started at.
Okay.
So we went to our first Golden Gloves match, right? And my dad is like convinced that I'm seeing bloody noses and all this stuff, and he's like, all right, I did my job, right? I'm a deterrent
I'm
now.
going to run him out of here.
He ain't what he wants, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this is exactly what I was talking about, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I could just see on his face, he's like, man, this totally backfired, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I loved it, and I've been hooked ever since. I've been, around every major boxing gym in the city, all the POW gyms, from East Liberty to Sheridan to the 3rd Avenue gym downtown. I've been in them all, and I just kind of navigated around as they would pop up. And
where do you think that came from? That like, I want to do this.
I really just
somebody
think it
in
was
your family did somebody in your family do it? Like what made you?
I hear,
or is it just something God put in you?
I think it's just something that's been in me, man. Honestly, I can't look to somebody in my family and just say that was the one. My mom is a feisty one for sure. My dad's a little more laid back. He's calculated, cool. Doesn't get too worked up. You'll probably never see him mad. You know what I mean? My mom will come get you.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? She's feisty, man.
So what percent of that do we get to see in you? Is this 80-20?
Yeah,
mom.
Well, I think
is it 50-50?
I think that I kind of take the best of both worlds, right? Because I have all those emotions, I have all those feelings, I have all that oomph, right? But I've learned to channel that be calculated about that and control that in the right environment and keep that to where it's positive, right? And that's taken a long time.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
You know, I had a friend of mine recently was telling me that they're also an attorney by trade, and that's something we didn't even get into with the folks. Not too often do you see somebody that's a professional boxer and an attorney.
Yeah, it's
super cool, super interesting. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Well, I was with some friends. I mean, recently this week, and we were talking, and they said they were laughing about somebody went to the bar, or something happened where the guy got fined or some type of penalty, or something got brought up that the guy was in the courtroom and he was so competitive with the other attorney that when they walked by, he elbowed him.
Oh, wow.
So we got to make sure we keep you under control. We can't have you throwing hands in the.
Can't do that.
Get an attorney for the attorney.
Well, but to that end, right? I mean, we could also break that down a little bit and say that he could or should have been a little more aware of his situation, because a lot of guys like me, I might take that as a chink in the armor.
Right.
I got you
Weakness.
so upset.
Yes.
Right. I got you so upset.
No doubt.
That you're over there elbowing me and you're off your game. If you're thinking about elbowing me, you're not thinking about the case, and that's what we're here for.
Right.
I'm here to win.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then we can we can talk after the fact. But, you know, in that moment, you need to be aware. You know, I tell people all the time, I love when I'm fighting someone that's seeing red or real mad or, you know, aggressive towards me. I'm going to pick you apart, brother, because if you're not thinking, I am. Mm-hmm. And there's 10 different ways I'm going to take you out now. So that's fine with me.
What sacrifices would you say that you've had to make, you know, that maybe people wouldn't understand on the come up, you know, especially people that don't understand or know boxing? You know, you see what you think you know, and then some of the glamour that comes with it, but there's a lot more to it. What would you say are some of the sacrifices that you've had to make coming up?
I can tell you the sacrifices are immense. I mean, not only from a financial standpoint, a lot of people don't understand how much sacrifice financially fighting it takes, okay? You know, especially in boxing at the lower levels, you're not making nothing. I mean nothing. Sometimes you're paying to fight.
Yep.
Right? So, and it's all about that dream. It's all about, it's rags to riches. You know, you're making nothing, then you get a big payday or whatever that looks like for your career. But at that time, you're probably working full time. You're probably training after and before work. You have no social life if you're doing it the right way. You don't have time. There's not enough hours in the day. So, you know, and what does that look like for your family life? Are you paying attention to your significant other? Are you paying attention to your children? You know, what's that look like for your daily schedule? There's no easy way to go about that. That's for sure.
Right.
But I know for me personally, it was a lot of sacrifice from the social aspect. It was a lot of sacrifice from kind of cutting off certain friend groups. Not necessarily cutting them off, that's the wrong term, but, you know, loving them from a distance for a little bit. Yep. You know what I mean? And just kind of like, hey, you know, that's not the most conducive environment for me at the moment. And
I've had similar experiences. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? I think that's a nugget for people to pick up on.
Yeah. So, you know, the reality of the situation is that a lot of us have friends or people that are surrounding us, family members, whatever that looks like, that are, you know, maybe not doing the right things. We'll say it that way. You know, maybe that be alcohol, maybe that be drugs, maybe that be just not doing what they need to do to support a positive lifestyle. And when you're around that environment, when you're in that environment, even if you're not even partaking, it brings you down by default. Mm-hmm. And you're not putting yourself in the positive environments. You're not putting yourself in the right places to further your own career and in your own trajectory. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everyone always likes to say, you know, if you're around 5 alcoholics, you're the 6th. And whether it's actually true for you or not, what you're not is you're not in the room that you need to be in. You're not in the room with the 5 killers that are helping you train. You're not in the room with the 5 good business entrepreneurs that are going to help you have the connections in the network to further your own career. So by default, even if someone bats their chest and say, "Oh no, I hung out with my friends, but I didn't drink." Okay, fair. But you also weren't in the right room either.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
There's a lot to be said for that.
So how do you pull out of that scenario when, you know, you have a heart like you have, and the character that you have and the pride and, that blue collar upbringing. How do you handle disassociating or pulling away in some aspects? Not forgetting, but needing to just move in a different direction to further yourself. How do you go about that?
Well, to your exact point, it's that sacrifice. That's not easy. That hurts.
There's a sacrifice.
That's a sacrifice.
Yep.
That hurts.
Yep.
You don't want to not be around certain people that you care about. You don't want no one just wakes up one day and says, I want to cut off my friend. This is something that was an unfortunate necessity for your progression as a person. And it's one of the side effects, and it's one of the sacrifices that has to be made one way or the other.
You started, I think you had your pro debut 2011. We're now in 2025. 14 years. Crazy.
Getting old,
so you've been a pro longer than when you were 13, right? Then you started boxing.
Right.
That's 13 years of life.
Yep.
A whole nother life,
Yep.
So to speak. What have you, how has your approach changed at all, from 2011 to 2025?
I've become so much more seasoned and so much wiser with my approach about training, first and foremost. I think that I'm the kind of guy, you know me a little bit, I'm all in, I work hard. I don't think anybody has ever questioned my work ethic. But what good is working super, super hard, banging your head against the wall? Okay? The door's right there. I could use a lot less energy just by opening that door. Mm-hmm. So sometimes if you have all of that work ethic and you have all of that grind, that's great. But you channel that in the wrong direction, or maybe not a direction that's efficient as it could be, and you're not making the strides that you could. So my evolution as a fighter, my evolution as a person has been being smarter, being more efficient, understanding my body, understanding the game.
Can you give me some examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Being more efficient, not banging, taking the door.
Yeah, absolutely. So, an easy one would be sparring, right? I would spar everyone and anyone. I notoriously, 13, 14, 15, at that gym I told you about across from Langley High School, there was a small, it sounds terrible, there was a small chicken and watermelon shop, I swear to God. I can't even make that up. And they would sell alcohol right there, and guys would sit on the front stoop, drink alcohol, and hang out. Well, they would peek in and watch us spar. So at a certain point, my coach would go out, Lee Spells, who's now deceased, would go out and grab some of these grown men, liquored up, and come in and spar little 13, 14-year-old me. I did it all the time. And so think about the blows that I took there unnecessarily. Think about the challenge. Now, it also made me who I was, and it emboldened me in a lot of different ways. But I'm not doing that anymore. Yep. You know what I mean? Those blows to the head, the taxing nature with which that puts on your body, I can't do that at 36, right? So I'm very strategic in the rounds that I take. I'm very strategic in the blows that I take to the head. If I get rocked a little bit, I might take a week off from getting hit. You know what I mean? I'm still training, but I'm not taking it. I'm saving it for the ring. You know what I mean? I'm known as someone who is tough and has a chin, and I don't want that to go away. Mm-hmm. So we're saving that for the ring. Yep. If I'm gonna get some CTE, I'm gonna get paid for it.
That's hard to do too. That's the discipline part.
Because your ego
is because you want to do that.
You walk in the gym and you say,
"Hey, I want to come harder."
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's hard to say no.
Yes.
That's the fighter in you, right? Of course, strap them up.
Yep.
But you have to have the team around you to say, "Hey, let me be the ego shield on that one." Yep. Right. That's where your coaching comes into perspective, and you say, "No, I want it. No. Take today off." You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's very important. I have a great team around me.
So what, fight tomorrow, what is the prep leading up to something like that look like? Both physical and mental, for people out there that don't really understand.
So tonight is the weigh-in, right? So that's first and foremost. We got to make the weight, and luckily we're fighting at 47, which is not a problem for me. I'm really a 135-pound fighter, 140-pound fighter, so 47 is an easy cut. I'm hanging out, you know what I mean? So and I did that strategically for this fight. I flat out made it known I'm not really cutting weight for this fight. So we had enough to worry about. So that's first and foremost. after the weigh-in and all of the things are set, the contracts are all handled, and everything's all done, paperwork with the commission's done, then it's time to just lock in, right? It's time to just lock in, visualization, understanding what the job that needs to be done, going through the game plan, going through all of the different steps of the way in which we're going to break this guy down. He's a very tough and rugged veteran. I'm expecting a real like blood and guts kind of entertaining fight for the fans, which is great. But my goal is to get him out of there. So how do I get him out of there? I think I'm more skillful than this guy. I think that a decision is inevitable just because I'm a lot better than him. But I want to get him out of there. I want to get him out of there in impressive fashion, and I think that'll be a real stamp on this event if I can do that.
Where's this guy from?
He's from Monterrey, Mexico. His name is Sal Corral. He's 32 and 21.
Okay.
He's got
ton of fights.
50-some.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot
he's
of fights.
tough as ever. He's
Yep.
been in there with like 10 world champions.
Okay.
Victor Ortiz, Josecito Lopez. The list goes on. He's definitely a top caliber opponent to bring me back to a big stage and set me up for a lot of big fights that I have planned for the rest of the year.
Okay, so you got more.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't just one-time thing. You got more plans and all that stuff. Leading up, you mentioned visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about the visualization aspect of what would you visualize?
I think it's very important to visualize the sequences within the fight. A lot of times, for me personally anyway, I like to visualize different scenarios in which maybe are compromising to me, right? How would I work my way through this scenario? I don't like this position. What would I do? What's my first thing that I want to say no matter what? This is what I'm going to do. So, for instance, this guy, he's an inside fighter, and, if I find myself in a precarious situation or an angle that I don't necessarily love, how can I change that situation to stay safe, number one, and number two, come back with an offensive attack that makes a lot of sense for that situation.
Okay. And then and I think that's something that can apply to life.
For sure.
Also.
For sure.
Probably as an attorney leading into courtroom, visualizing
100%.
a lot of that stuff can apply. How about the physical, prep leading up? How long of a camp? What does that look like cardio-wise, nutrition-wise, training-wise?
So I think the standard camp is like 8 weeks, so 2 months. Some people go a little longer, 12 weeks. Shorter than that, you probably have just been staying in shape and you're just honing in for a last minute opportunity. This particular fight, we've been training for a while. The idea of coming back to Pittsburgh and putting on big events has been on my mind for quite a while. So I've been in the gym, I've been training, but we did throw this together rather quickly. We ended up getting the deal done for the event about 4 weeks ago. So this was very much put together with an expedited effort.
Yep.
So I'm very proud of my team for that because we're going to put on a very professional and a very spectacular event. And I think that the time frame with which we had is all the more impressive. Moving forward, we won't have that obligation. We'll be able to have adequate time to prepare. I think we're going to have 4 months or a little more for the next event, so we'll be able to do it right. But I think it's a testament to my team and to everybody around that has been able to put on an event of this caliber within 4 weeks.
Yeah. When you say your team, what would that comprise of?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, my head trainer, Chris Williams, who you know well, great
my dog.
guy. Yeah, he's
Love
great
Chris.
Guy. Great guy.
Don't your wives have the same name?
Yeah,
Okay.
They do.
All right.
Caitlin I think hers is with a K and mine's with a C, but same name. But we've got Chris Williams, we've got Ryan Flora, we've got Jared Boyer.
Great crew.
Great crew of guys.
Got to know Ryan a little bit this year. His son's been wrestling.
Yeah.
With my son, I see him all over.
Yeah.
The place. Obviously, I spend a lot of time with Chris. Jared is a great dude.
Great guy.
Love that Jared's on the squad. That's my dude. You know how I met Jared?
No.
All right. One day we'll ask him. I don't want to make this or after I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But you got to ask Jared how me and him met. Literally divine intervention.
Dude,
that dude's a great dude.
And going back to him, I've known him for almost 20 years. I was about 18 when I met him, and we were in a different era of our lives.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you can.
I know he got a background to him.
You could take that any which way you want. It was a different era of our life.
Yep.
And we've always been cool. We've always stayed close, and I'm really proud of the things that he's doing right now as a man. And he's been a great influence and addition to my team and what we got going on. And he's got his own little wrinkle of how he trains, and I like that. It reminds me a lot of some of the ways in which I used to train, using a lot of movement and using a lot of flow and rhythm, and so it's just a good little addition, you know, to kind of to flare it up. And he's just good people. So the positive energy that he brings is another good addition to the team. But he's also helping on the promotional aspect of things for Turf Wars. And he's been doing a great job. He's been doing a really great job.
Love it. And you and Chris been together, I think, what, over a decade or so?
Gotta be. We've been together a long time. And the great thing about Chris was, you know, they say the best coaches don't implement their game plan. They build their game plan around the talent that they have. Well, that's difficult to do with me because I'm a little different. I don't fit in any of the exact boxes that you'd probably like to see for combat sports. But I think that you know, my skill set and my strengths are undeniable in certain areas. So Chris has done a great job of allowing me to be myself while cleaning it up. You know what I mean? Allowing me to have and utilize my strengths, but you know, stay within a box of fundamentals, and you know, it's worked out well.
Love it. Shout out to Chris Williams out there. Speaking of support systems in a team, I think probably the star player of a team for somebody in your situation would be your spouse.
Absolutely.
And the person that you choose, you know, with the lifestyle that you've chosen, you know. An attorney and going to school to be an attorney, all that brings its own sense of busyness and not a lot of time left over, you know, like you mentioned. Now you throw onto it boxing and everything that comes with professional boxing and the sacrifices, you know, that are made as a father, you know, as a husband, having that support system. How important would you say is it for somebody to have the right spouse trying to do something like this?
It's unbelievably important. I think it's actually critical because, you know, I can speak from my own personal experience. Having the confidence that the home is taken care of, you know, having the confidence that my son is taken care of, and giving me the freedom and the ability with which to go and get it. Right? To be able to go and chase all of these crazy ideas, whether it be in business or fighting, you know, she has been solid in that area. And that's invaluable because without that, you know,
you've probably seen it.
Yeah.
People that don't have that.
Yeah, exactly. And we had some of those, you know, issues early on too, and you know, we're new parents, right? So trying to navigate that, who's gonna watch the baby, who's gonna help, who's gonna do this, and so having good friends and family around and giving her a little bit of freedom to be herself as well is good for her mental clarity and kind of bouncing back from all of that postpartum and everything else that's real for a lot of these women.
For sure.
And so I think that's been great for us, so that, you know, she can be my teammate. You know what I mean?
So someone that's looking, you know, let's say there's somebody that's young, you know, listening, and they want a career in boxing, and maybe also at the same time to pursue, you know, a degree, you know, like you, busy life. How would you suggest to them to, you know, I think at the same time you have to cut off friends and make sacrifices. I think you also probably, if you're with the wrong person that doesn't support your dream, you need to be able to cut off that person if the dream is that serious. You know, not if you're already married with kids, but prior to that happening, you know, I think that I've watched a lot of young people. I've watched their careers be made or broken by the spouse or the person that they choose. You know, to me, when people ask for my humble opinion in that regards, I tell them, hey, number one decision I think that you could ever make is you know, as an imperfect person, you know, just having a relationship with God. I think the second biggest decision that you'll ever make is going to be the person that you choose to spend the rest of your life with, or to have children with. What advice would you give? So you're 36.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what advice would you give to somebody that's, 21, 24, in that area of their life?
It's really important to understand a few things. I think that the easy answer is to understand each other's goals and understand, where you see yourself later in life and what's important to you. Is it family? Is it career success? Is it a combination of the both? Whatever that looks like. But I think the next harder piece of that is, are you willing to grow together? Because, I'm not the same person that I was 15 years ago when I met my wife. Right. And neither is she.
Right.
It's just natural. We're humans. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to understand and have a willingness to grow together. It's very easy to grow apart. So, having those conversations and really meaning that, we're in this together, we are a team, and, when things aren't necessarily easy, or, I spring something crazy on you, like, hey, I'm moving to California for a year to go chase this idea.
Has that happened?
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
I was referencing myself.
Okay.
Like, I had literally gone on a whim with her. We had just built our new place about 6 years ago in Pittsburgh, and we were all excited about it. And I had an opportunity to get a full scholarship out in I'd never even been to California before, on vacation or otherwise. And I got an opportunity to go out there to law school. I did my first year of law school out in San Francisco, California, and I literally went on a whim. I got a flight the next day, went out, got an apartment, came back, got everything situated, and was like, hey, I'll see you in about 10, 11 months. So, having a partner that is supportive.
Think about that type of support.
Right.
I'm going to go to the other coast. I'm going to go to as far as west as I could pretty much get here.
Yeah.
And we're going to do long distance for 10 months.
Yeah. This is important. This is better for us. I'm not doing this selfishly. I'm not doing this for me. This is something that is in our vision and in my vision for us. And so having somebody that trusts you.
In that period of your life, how often did you see each other in person?
I flew her out as much as I could, but I was a college student at the time. I every dollar that I had went to living. My scholastics were paid for by the scholarship, but I had to live in San Francisco, California. Mm-hmm. I was in a 300 square foot studio apartment. My rent was $3,000 plus utilities.
Wow.
So, everything was more expensive out there.
Yep.
So everything that I had and to focus on school, I pulled everything I had and I lived off of that.
Once a quarter? Once a month?
I would say once a quarter, yeah.
Once a quarter.
Yeah.
There's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And a testimony to someone that's supporting and in the growing together and, all that stuff, some stuff that people wouldn't see. I had somebody that had a lot of success and both professionally and personally with their family. And so I asked the question of the support system and choosing the right person and all that. And he said, sometimes when I get that question, I tell people, if they're not, if their vision is to go one direction and the person that they're dating, kind of isn't on the same page or hounding them about it. He said, I don't know which one it is, but either you got the wrong vision, you got the wrong job, or you got the wrong potential wife.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out which one it is. Do you have the right person and you're saying, well, maybe I can't pursue this dream. Mm-hmm. Or is it, man, I know I got this dream. I just don't have the right person that's going to support me on that dream because it's never going to happen. So shout out to you guys, man, for making it through all those phases of life.
It's not easy. I think that's a piece of what you're saying there, that, don't think that, any part of that was comfortable for anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's that decision to say, no, we're in this together.
What, I know for me, you mentioned, in the beginning about not banging your head on the wall, mm-hmm. where there's a door there, you could take the door. Right. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think a lot of my life that I've been able to take the door is so many people that I've had the opportunity to be mentored by, that I've reached out to, that have sacrificed their time, for me. What would you say are some things that you've learned from some of your coaches and mentors? Who would some of your mentors, and coaches be, and what would you say that you've learned from those people?
So I think that for me, there's been a lot of different mentors in different sections of my life, right? And then in different ways. So a lot of people think of a mentor as somebody that's helping you in your maybe business or financial career, but I've also had a lot of good mentors in my, spiritual life. I've had a lot of good mentors in my life as just trying to be a better human being. And so I think that that's important to kind of talk about as well.
Yes.
You don't have to be a good mentor. You don't have to have a boatload of money. That's not a prerequisite to being a good mentor.
Yep.
So for me, I know, one of my best friends, Sam Knoll, he was the best man in my wedding. He's a great example to me of someone who's just a great guy of his word. You can count on him no matter what. I could call him right now. He'd answer, what do you need? What do you, just phenomenal person, great father, great husband, always has been. So to me, that's always been someone I'm like, okay, I like the fact that, that's my guy, because I would like to emulate him as a man and as a person, right? I'm constantly trying to surround myself now with guys that think in the same way that I do spiritually as well. I think that that's been a new kind of key to my success, if you will, is keeping around that positivity and guys that are saved and believe in God. And I think that that's been important. Obviously the addition of Jared to the team has been a great kind of influx of that. We actually got one of our guys, Shane Shinaki, saved during this camp, which was just like
awesome, man. Come on.
And it's just like, that's just amazing to me. That's cool to me. That's real mentorship. That's something that, you can kind of wrap your arms around, and all of that to say that then becomes conducive to the financial success, right? Because now you're doing it the right way with the right people who are selfless, who are just here to help, and then the money will come. Yep. You know what I mean? Trying to chase the money, and sometimes that's easy to do in the wrong way, and then it's hollow.
Right. Amen. You got to become the person versus chasing the money. You just build yourself up, and all those things will end up coming. I think what's critical that you said that's huge is having mentors in different areas and aspects of your life. You could have a mentor that can help you in your marriage, that has more experience in that avenue. Mm-hmm. Then you have business mentors. Yeah. Then you have boxing mentors. You have spiritual mentors that can help you, spiritually. And I think sometimes the mistake that people could make is not having mentors in different compartments, because I've had business mentors that are great people, great business mentors, but I wouldn't necessarily want them as my mentor for advice in marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I've had people that can give me great advice, and I think great mentorship in marriage and in life, but necessarily probably wouldn't be my go-to for financial advice or business advice. And I think sometimes people will have a one-size-fits-all approach to that, where they're putting a mentor in a situation, that maybe they should be in boxing terms, your boxing coach, but not necessarily your wrestling coach.
Right.
You can't use the same person for all aspects, if they're not equipped for that. So I think that's huge for people that they could grab from that.
Yeah, and what you're saying there is a very powerful thing, because if you think about it too, you're not going to be identical to any one of those people. Your situation may be different. Maybe your business mentor doesn't have kids, or maybe your business mentor isn't married. Well, now that's a conflict of interest for you personally in your development, because for that segment of your life, he can't relate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe you have different morals as it relates to that. Either way, the reality is that, you have to segregate that in a clean way to make sure that you're being the best version of you. And I completely agree with that. When you were starting to pose that question, I was kind of cringing a little bit, because the first couple mentors that instantly came to my head were all business mentors. And I wanted to make sure I got that out, because, unfortunately, I've had to kind of step away from some of those business mentors in a lot of ways, because I didn't necessarily respect how they were getting things done. And that's something that's been kind of heavy on me in my evolution as a Christian, is that, I went through a difficult phase in which I was tested. As I started walking closer in my faith, I think I got a little bit passive. I got a little bit, I wasn't as aggressive. I lost that edge. You know what I mean? I felt like I wasn't myself. Everything that I've ever had, I've had to fight for. I've had to scratch and claw and fight my way to have any little bit of success that I've ever had. And I think that as I got closer in my faith, I got a little too lax a little. I stepped off the gas a little bit. I was a little too, okay, if this is the right way to do it, then okay, I trust you a little too much. And it didn't serve me as well, you know? And so I think that as I started to kind of lean on some of my Christian mentors and really understand that, if I'm doing this in an ethical and legal and good way, I'm still
aggressive.
I can still be aggressive,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yes.
that's been my evolution personally of like, no, I need to get back to me. I can still be a good person,
Yes.
and still be aggressive,
Yes.
you know, and that's been huge.
Jared got those shirts saved, not soft.
It's so true though,
Right?
You know, it's so true.
Yes.
You know, I'm saved, but that's not a.
Let's talk about that. So you mentioned your journey, and I could just see it in you spiritually, how much you've progressed there.
Yeah.
Somebody out there that's, you know, maybe on their journey of not knowing, you know, where they're at, but they know they feel the same thing that maybe you felt. How did your journey go? You know, how did that come about, you know, for you spiritually? You know, where are you at now? Where were you at? And how did that happen?
So what kind of occurred was, the old adage, you work hard and it pays off. That's what everybody wants to hear. Work hard, the harder you work, it's going to pay off, and everybody, put your nose to the grindstone, never quit. Yeah, all that sounds good. What do you do when you work really hard for years? You sacrifice everything. 100-hour weeks are nothing to you, and you're just working, you're working for years. And right about when you're about to get that payoff, it gets stolen from you. What do you do? Right? Do you quit? Do you give up? Because at that point, you can even tell yourself, I didn't quit. It just didn't kind of work out. That path wasn't there. And, for me, during that time, I was very much, becoming stronger in my faith. Me and my wife, we're really starting to hone in on that. And it was a really important part of our life during that time. And then to kind of have that carrot taken away at the end there was crazy to me. It was crazy to me. So
What carrot?
So I can't get exactly into like the deep details of it, but it was essentially, a major deal that would have been very important for my business life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so it's one of those things where, it's not supposed to go down like that. That's not in the script, right? It's not in the script. You work hard, you get it. You work hard, you get it. That's how things are supposed to go, especially for a good, godly Christian man, right? I'm doing things right. And then so when you get to that point, you have to really think and kind of take back some of the traits that allowed you to get to that spot in the first place. So for me, it was more of like, okay, I got a little bit too laxed in this scenario. I got a little bit too trusting. And, that's not a necessity for being a good person. That's not a necessity for being a good Christian. I don't have to be blinded by everybody's a good person, and I don't have to be blinded by, not keeping my eye on the ball as it relates to the potential downfalls or pitfalls of certain things in business. And that was a very powerful moment for me in my personal walk because it was definitely an awakening.
And so how did you move forward versus backwards? Because a lot of times when things, you're walking in the right path, something happens that you don't want to happen. Mm-hmm. You say, well, what's the point? Why would God let that happen to me?
Yeah.
I don't know if I regress in this area versus progress, in this area. What made you progress in that area? And then also, how did you even start that journey as it is? Did you grow up with that type of faith and heart for the Lord? Did something happen? Did a person lead you in that direction? How did that first initiate?
In that moment, to your exact point, in that moment, you question everything, right? You start doubting everything. Maybe I regress. Maybe you start thinking vengeful thoughts. You start thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't do things the right way. Maybe I go at this. Maybe this was all for naught, and I go back to a different period in my life and handle things a little bit differently. And essentially, what boiled down to was I wasn't willing to do that. I wasn't willing to compromise my values as a person that I have grown into and that I have now. I wasn't willing to compromise my relationship with my wife. I wasn't willing to compromise. You know, my wife was pregnant at the time, so I knew that my son was on the way, and I wanted to really say, okay, here is an opportunity, as opposed to an opportunity for me to quit and kind of go back into some of those old negative kind of thoughts. Here's an opportunity for me to stand on my own 2 feet and show people and show my family what it is to do the right thing. If nothing else, this can be a testimony one day to how we got through this situation, and to stay walking on the path, to stay, you know, living my life the right way, and to make sure that we went about this through the proper channels, and we did, and luckily everything has worked out tenfold, and you know, I'm very proud of that. But at no point was that easy.
Right. So, you know, when you were coming up, you mentioned that, you know, at 13 years old, you know, your dad took you to a Golden Gloves, you seen a little blood, and you said, yeah, that's exactly what I think, you know, I want. Was there that point for you spiritually? Like, at what point did you say, man, that's what I want, or was there a transition period for you?
I think that I don't think that there was a certain date, but I do think that as my evolution as a person was occurring, as I was, you know, kind of moving my way through life and my relationship and my marriage and, you know, now with my son and everything like that, I think it really came back to me just kind of looking within and saying, what kind of man do I want to be? And most importantly, what kind of man do I want my son to see in me? What kind of man do I want my wife to see in me? And, you know, that has made things a little bit easier for me, because now I can compartmentalize, right? I can say no. As easy as it is and as tempting as it is to kind of veer and take a little detour, that's non-negotiable now, right?
Yep.
I have a position, I have a standard now that I want to uphold for my son, for my wife, and for myself.
I think I see, you know, what I admire and respect in you is, you know, I've seen a lot of people, you know, on the journey have a tough time balancing their ego and spirituality, or their maybe their pride in their image versus their spirituality. Because at times, to walk on a spiritual journey, you can look to the outside as soft, right?
Yeah.
Especially depending on, you know, what your upbringing, you know, was like. Like, I know for me, my transition, you know, and as a young person growing up, you know, where I grew up is like, if anybody says or does anything, you know, wrong or disrespects you, it's you have to fight. Yeah. Win, lose, or draw, you have to attack. Or if somebody does something to you that's hurtful to you, or then you retaliate. You know, it's always a retaliation, you know, back to that, and that's what's uplifted versus maybe taking a different road. You know, the high road is seen as the weak road, you know, versus the tough road. And I never really understood why people would say, you know, it takes a bigger man to walk away in certain scenarios. I used to think that was a cop-out for people that didn't have the inner strength to do it. Yeah. And the older that I get, the more that I realize that, you know, just much like the sacrifice you're talking about with different situations and friends, is it takes even more discipline to recover and not spar as much as it does to go spar. It takes even more discipline, more of a man that got that in him to say, no, I'm going to take the high road versus retaliate in certain scenarios. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, 100%.
How would you help somebody on their journey in that way?
To your point, I think that your story about your upbringing and mine are much more similar than maybe we had even realized, because I know that when I made that transition and that switch from schools, I struggled bad. I essentially wasn't communicating, and I was just fighting everybody. And I had one teacher during that time that forced me to go home with a journal every night, and I had to write down all of the things that I felt that day and why I was getting in all these fights and why I was doing all this. Because to your point, I didn't understand, you know. And when I switched over to Montour, and these kids are in each other's faces, they're pushing each other. There's no fight. And I'm like, I'm confused. That's not how this goes. Like, you guys hurry up and fight to the death over a dispute, and that's just kind of how it works. Like, that's just what I knew. It's what it was. So I struggled greatly with that, and they kind of slowly broke me into that kind of understanding of kind of calming down a little bit, using my words a little bit more, as opposed to just swinging on everybody that I had a small disagreement with. So I'm very familiar with that. But as it relates to kind of this next evolution of my life and your life, I think it's interesting to your point that, you know, it takes the bigger man to walk away sometimes. But I also think that you have to think about what's the win. What's the win in this situation? Okay, you got a lot to lose, brother. If you're out there and you know you get into a physical altercation, it's not just you anymore. They're coming after the things that protect your family. They're coming after your home. They're coming after all these things. As anybody with any sort of success at all, you sacrifice all of that by punching someone in the face on the street. Like, think about the
Feel
win.
good for a minute.
Yeah, and they got nothing to lose. That's the ticket. That's the
not
trade-off.
fair.
Right. It's not fair.
Yeah.
You have all this great stuff. You have a great life. You have a great family and they've got nothing to lose. And so that has helped me a little bit to be able to just say, I feel bad that unfortunately maybe you feel like you don't have anything to lose in this situation, but I do. And you know, if things were different, if the situation was a little different, if circumstances were a little different, I could show you that a little more sternly.
Right,
But,
right.
you know, I have to walk a little bit.
Yeah. So, you know, I've been switching gears a little bit. I had somebody say, you know, for the rest of your life, life is going to be, how do you handle success? Because some people can't handle success well.
I agree with that.
And how do you handle failure?
Yeah.
That's for the rest of our life. We're gonna have to figure out, how do we handle success and how do we handle failure, because life is that roller coaster ride. It's not always a straight line on the way up, right? So, you know, with 20 pro wins, you know, how would you talk about, you know, and we're not perfect, right? So you probably didn't always do it perfectly, but at 36, if you're giving advice to somebody out there, you know, how do you handle the wins of life, period? How do you handle the wins in the ring? How do you handle the wins of life? And then how do you handle the losses? Because you got a couple losses in there. Yeah. You know, how do you handle the losses? How do you learn from the losses? How do you handle the wins?
I think the biggest thing as it relates to that is understanding that this isn't forever, right? So if you've won right now, you have to be humble enough to understand that this isn't always going to be the case. That also, in turn, is the same attitude that you have to have when you have a loss as well. This is not forever. This is not binding on me. This doesn't define me. And I think that your resilience and your tolerance for that stress, for that pain, is what makes you good at fighting, makes you good at business, whatever that is kind of understanding that, man, this is crazy, this is weighing on me, this is stressful, this is painful, but it's not forever. If I just keep in the fight, if I just don't quit, if I just keep pressing forward, if I just keep stepping forward, I can turn this around. I can turn this around. And so you have to remember that as well when you're winning, because, you know, I've had some decent successes in my life as it relates to fighting or as it relates to business or otherwise. But at the same time, you have to have that humbleness and understand that this also isn't forever. This can go away. You know, this isn't guaranteed. It's not like I hit the lottery or something and this isn't going anywhere. You know, we've got to keep this going. You know, we got to make sure that tomorrow we come with that same energy to make sure that we can win again, because today's win's great, but guess what? Tomorrow is a clean slate. So we got to do it again.
Right. You know, test of greatness and hallmark of excellence, you know, we say is consistency. And so if you're on a journey of, you know, wanting to be great and you get a victory, how long do you think is appropriate? Because you should celebrate, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it. What do you think is appropriate time frame for a celebration? I
struggle with that because for me, and maybe this is a little bit of my ego popping out, but I genuinely expect to win. I genuinely mean that. And so when I win a fight, or
I think you got to have that mindset.
You know, I do anything, even you know, I have a successful scenario in business, or I get a nice win for a client. It's really hard for me to celebrate because that was expected for me. You know, the loss would be, oh my God, this is crazy. Something happened. I need to reassess what the situation is. I need to understand how this happened. You know, I genuinely expect to win in these scenarios. So unfortunately for me, maybe I don't have a celebratory.
So there's no
time.
long window of celebration. We're not
No.
winning a fight, winning a business situation, and we're just losing focus for the next month.
No, and I genuinely mean that. It's one of those things for me where I have such high expectations for myself, and I know what I'm capable of, that it's really hard for me to celebrate.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
Yeah.
You know,
I
maybe
think
that'll
that's
change
huge.
one day.
I think that's huge.
Maybe one day I tell you something different. But at least at this
I think
stage
that's
in my
the
life,
difference between good and great.
yeah.
I've tried to help people like this in business, that young people, that some of them I've seen that have the talent, and they'll go out there and do something great for a month.
Yeah.
And then the next month they're spending all their money that they made for that month, and they're kind of getting lazy, and then they'll come back for a month or two. And it seems like the ones that go from that level and build the momentum to greatness, they never quite are in that celebration mode for a month or for a quarter, because they had a good quarter. So I think those are good tips. Being that you're also an attorney, by trade, two super professional accomplishments, as being a professional boxer. This ain't 3 fights. I mean, this is 20 some fights. And then also an attorney. What would you say that you've learned from boxing that transfers over into your business?
So I think a lot of it,
or vice versa.
Yeah, no, I think that we continue to touch on the same things because it's so translatable. It is literally a physical fight and an intellectual fight. And I think that that's maybe why I kind of navigated so easily to that career and to that kind of channel, if you will, into my life. But
that is a fight.
Yeah, it is a fight.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things. It's preparation, it's understanding, it's game planning, it's being, and my biggest thing too as a business attorney is I like to be preventative in these issues, right? So it's extra onus on the game plan, right? I want to come into your organization and I want to put policies and procedures in place so that we don't have a problem.
Defense.
And if we do have a problem, then we are so quickly able to mitigate that because we have all of these things in place already, right? So it's instead of being instead of being like, coming at an issue after the fact, we're being proactive. You know what I mean? And that's really something that I can attest to as a business attorney that I take a lot from in the fight world is we do everything to prepare and be proactive for the fight. We ought to do the same thing in business as well. Being
proactive, looking at your life, what do you think, what does it look like for you, the next vision? What's next for you 5 years, 10 years out? What do you see?
10 years from now, I'm working from Wi-Fi from wherever I want to be. It's almost there now. If I have my cell phone, I have my laptop, I can be anywhere. I'm licensed to practice in Pennsylvania and Florida. I have a lot of business ventures in Pennsylvania and Florida. I'm constantly back and forth. And the ability to do that with modern technology is great. But my biggest goal is that I want to be at all my son's practices. I want to be at all the games. I want to be wherever it is physically that I want to be in a few years, I want to be. And I don't want to have to be anywhere. And if I need to work during that time, I want to be able to do it from my phone or from my laptop. That's my goal.
Love it. What do you think creates that opportunity? Is it front loading all the work that you've done to create that opportunity?
If you can, but that's tough, right? Because tastes change, budgets change. You start. That's just the reality of the situation. Lifestyles change, and so at least for someone like me who has a hard time kind of celebrating, always wants more, always needs more. I think that would be difficult for me to kind of front load too much of that. Obviously, that's the smart thing to do. That's what you should do. But if I front load enough of that and I create the right teams and the infrastructure in these businesses, then I can kind of take my foot off the gas personally a little more and do a little more managing and, kind of just put out fires as needed as opposed to being involved in the day-to-day operations. So that's the next phase of this is not only kind of knocking the ball out of the park, but ensuring that the right teams and policies and procedures are in place so that continues to happen as I remove myself from the game.
Yep. Speaking of removing yourself from the game, I think what I've witnessed over the last 5 years, and I know it goes back further than that, 10 years, and where it'll be 5 and 10 years from today, it seems like there's been a evolution a little bit in MMA, in boxing in Pittsburgh, where there's just platforms that are being built by the last generation to kind of uplift the next one and give it a little bit bigger of a boost on the map, so to speak. And I know you're a part of that. Yeah. So how would you speak to, what legacy do you want to have in that respect? And then also legacy that you're looking for. You mentioned a lot of this, like what do you want to have as your legacy with your family, but what legacy do you see? What have you seen in the Pittsburgh MMA and boxing scene over the years?
I think that the talent in this area is real. I think that for better or for worse, for whatever reason, we have a lot of tough guys coming through here, whether it be through the phenomenal wrestling programs in Western PA, whether it be from some of these lower income areas that have these police athletic gyms and some of these boxers coming out of there or just, it's a rich talent pool. So how do we influx as much opportunity into these systems to create a positive lane for these youngsters to go through, right? And so for me personally, I would like to use my last few years of fighting, years with an S, to kind of implement some of these platforms and to make sure that there is a clear vision in a lane for some of these young dreamers to turn that into a reality. And so I'm proud to do that. I'm happy to do that. And I think that it's very realistic. In fact, our most recent platform, I have a long-term agreement and partnership with Highmark Stadium. So, we're going to have 3, they want 4, at least 3-4 events a year that we will have guaranteed moving forward. Outdoor venues at Highmark Stadium in the South Side, indoor at the Montour Sportsplex in Coriopolis. So we've got some of the biggest and best venues in the city available to these events. So now the onus is just on us to make sure that we put these events on at a high level to the standard of the sponsors and the people that are involved with Highmark. And, that was kind of part of the deal to get in the door is a guarantee for me that you're gonna have world-class events, and that we're not gonna put together anything that would be considered substandard. That we're gonna live up to the expectations and what Pittsburgh deserves. They deserve big events, they deserve big platforms, and that goes for both boxing and MMA.
The talent pool, like you mentioned, it just makes sense. I was having a conversation recently. There's not too many places that have had NFL players have as much success as PA and specifically even Western PA. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could go top 3, areas, states, out there with Hall of Famers, and that demographic. Then you look at wrestling. I believe Pennsylvania is the number 1 state in the country, for wrestling. And so it just seems like it just makes sense that the talent pool, would be there. Now your fight tomorrow is going to be held where?
At the Montour Sportsplex. That's in Coriopolis, and that's where the Riverhounds, the professional soccer team, practices. So it's a very nice facility. It's only a few years old. It's a beautiful place. It's actually sponsored by Allegheny Health Network, which is owned by Highmark. So all of the eyes will be there. All of the right people will be there. So I think that some of these younger guys, on the undercard, we got Jerome Baxter, young, undefeated, up-and-coming guy. Danny Bodish, another young, undefeated, up-and-coming guy. We've got Shane Shinaki So professional wrestler coming out there trying his hand as a professional boxer, and that's just got entertainment written all over it.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? And so it's exciting. We're gonna put on a great show for the fans, and we're gonna have a great production. We've got multiple live performances. We got the University of Pittsburgh drumline coming out there to make some noise.
Sweet.
And it's gonna be crazy, man.
What time we getting started?
It starts at 7. Doors open at 6.
Okay. And that'll run till what? What do you think, 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
10:30, 11 o'clock?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'll probably
Beautiful.
go on right around 9:30, 10, and
Okay.
we'll have some fun for sure.
Beautiful. And now somebody that, you mentioned you're a business attorney. How would somebody follow your journey if somebody wanted to get in touch with you or somebody wanted to, follow you? What outlets do you have for somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So online, my website is the hutchlawoffices.com.
Hutchlawoffices.com. Hutch, Hutch. Okay.
Lawoffices.com. And my Instagram, official Bill Hutchinson. And from there, you can navigate everything. You can sign up for consultations or check out everything that I'm posting on Instagram as well. And from that website, from the Hutch Law Offices website, you can navigate and go around and see all of the different options. You can put in there what it is that you need and how we can help. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Love it. Love it. Well, let's all be thinking of and rooting in Hutch tomorrow. Hutch, I'm proud of you, man, and congratulations on all your success, both in and out of the ring, as a dad, as a husband, as a business person, and once again, another victory tomorrow, as a fighter, man. So thanks for coming out and joining us, man. You're always welcome here. We're all proud of you, man, and I appreciate you coming out. So thanks for joining us on another episode of the GRINDcast. Get ready. It's a new day.